Hello again, everybody. It is Wes with Pikes Peak Trades, wishing you a wonderful weekend. Hope it's going well, and excited to bring you my latest edition of the weekend video for the week ending February 19th, 2021. Our stocks A to Z. I've got a lot of information to share. Hopefully, a lot of encouraging setups for you. It was a tough week. We made the high of the week on Monday, and then we were sideways to down the rest of the week. Did not get bullish resolution to end the week, and going into the weekend left us with a little bit of uncertainty. So I'll talk through all of that. If you recall last weekend's video, so we were right here, moving from this candle into this candle, and my projection was that we were going to be able to move up this week and get up to this next rail, and we did not. This black top resistance line so far has held further advances in the S&P all the way since November, and then we got that pullback, which I do think is in. Leaving the possibility that early this coming week we could draw down to some more typical fibs, but this is a strong market. There's a chance we got a shallow two. Let me jump back quickly to the weekly and just show you that we're still in a very healthy progression right here in this bull channel. Just want to point out as a reminder, I've got targets in the 43 to 4,600 area by late spring, early summer. Now, at this point, I'm not quite ready to say that we're going to get to 5,000 or beyond. I do think we'll run out of gas, but I also think there are some great setups that are going to keep leading us higher. Let's take a look at one of those short-term setups, and you're going to see pretty consistently throughout the video the classic pattern setups that have been buyable, tradable, reliable since March. We have a potential inverse head and shoulders on the S&P on the short term with obvious resistance levels above. So breakout traders are looking for this top line to break. We got to get above 39.30 and then 39.33 on the S&P. If we cannot on Monday, this might be a high probability short entry. And that would be the blue count, that we actually have a double zigzag going on. Double zigzags have been very, very common as corrective patterns for a number of months. And if we can't crack this rail and can't get above these 39.30 prices, then it's very possible that early in the week we get some selling volatility, possibly to take it down into the low to mid 3900s. Let's move into tech. So big tech certainly disappointing at the end of the week. And you're going to notice on that weekly candle down about 1.6%. kind of still hugging right along this channel line. And you'll notice I'm not quite as optimistic in my intermediate term target, just because we've seen a little bit of lag. We've seen really industrials, small caps, and financials leading. And in order for a much more ambitious target to play out, we've got to see the big boys start participating. So we're going to look at Apple. We've obviously got weakness in Amazon, Facebook. It's questionable what's happening in Tesla. Really, Microsoft and Google are the two big tech boys that are well above their September highs and maybe consolidating for more. So I have a more conservative target here on QQQ until the big tech leaders prove that they're going to participate. We get into the daily, and again, you're going to see on Monday. So here's Monday's candle. Couldn't even reach up into that rail that I was anticipating we might even be able to see a move into the top channel here. Obviously didn't happen. So obviously the question is, did we see the low? Did we see this minute degree 2 low on Thursday? It's already at a deeper fib and a really nice backtesting touch of the 21-day EMA. We didn't close above the 8-day EMA on either S&P or Q. So possibly leading us into a little more weakness. One of the reasons why this was one of the weekends that I went nearly flat into the weekend. I just didn't see a lot of reason to take risk in. I'll talk about the only name that I am in. It's possible. Is this move at the end of the day on Friday, is that a bear flag? So that is, again, what you see as my alternate blue. The more bullish resolution is that from Thursday's low, we got a 1-2. Okay, so again, just like the S&P, do we have a tradable pattern here? Are we going to see a rail breakout? Would we see a back test? So that would be an entry for me. If we pop up out of here, back into this channel, back test right here, maybe at double support, maybe midday Monday, that I think could be my trigger to say maybe we've got the opportunity here to go long. Let's look into Iwm and Xlf. So Iwm, weekly candle here. This isn't an outside bearish week, but it's down almost 1%. We look here into the daily, and you're going to see there, actually the top was put in prior to this past week and just kind of a stair step down. Again, is it done? Well, it is in a possible fib area, and we did have a nice move on Friday that did close above the 8-day EMA. So there is a little bit of optimism here based on what small caps have done. And again, you're going to see this repeatedly. Do we have more reliable tradable patterns that are showing? Here we have the potential of a bull pennant. And these setups over the last few months have resolved themselves bullishly. And this is how traders have made a lot of money. It's when these setups start to fail that we have to start looking at a potential market character change. And as of now, I think we do see resolution. So my primary count here on Iwm is that this is a 1, 2, 3. This is a bull pennant 4. We see a pop, and I want to look to buy that pullback. So very similar to what I just showed on QQQ. Would we get a move up, a back testing opportunity to buy, and then we can see these much more aggressive targets. Of course, otherwise, if this pennant breaks down, then we're looking into these more typical fibs here. Okay, financials. So financials, no pullback this week, up almost 3%. I'm going to introduce a possibility here on financials that they already put in their 2 more than a week ago at a very shallow level. And that would indicate that there is no more pullback coming, and we're moving aggressively up into the mid-30s. So if there is a pullback coming here, it's going to have to be imminent. Now, what would distinguish that? Well, if there is a pullback, my primary count says it's only going to be of a sub degree. Maybe possibly to backtest this 200 period MA before we move up strongly the rest of the week. Some pretty smart people out there have suggested, you can't really get bearish and think about actively, tactically shorting the market until you see weakness in financials. We have not had that at all. Look at this massive move since the end of January. If we do see weakness in financials, then that might become our clue that we could get a little tactically short. While that still holds up, I think it would be silly to try to risk any of your capital here on the short side. That's a good longer-term lesson for you to keep in mind. Okay, I will get into all the big tech names. I want to get to the names that I have on this screen so I don't forget. I want to talk about some names with earnings this week, and so let's look at Home Depot. So here, looking at the very longer-term chart, you can see I am bullish on Home Depot over the very, very long term, but I'm wondering, are we getting close to a very significant top? And if you've been watching my videos, you know that's actually my suggestion, is that at some point, late spring, early summer, we're going to get that pretty sizable pullback across the board. But I don't think we're done yet. So HD, and you're going to see Salesforce here in a little bit, very similar 6-month flagging patterns. And are we finally going to get the breakout resolution? So it has its earnings here on Tuesday. You're going to see it's been consolidating here above its moving averages. And what would be your triggering play? So your triggering play, again, my choice late in the week was not to try to front run any of these, is to try to see if we can get a rail breakout and backtest. Now, would I front run earnings? My decision, and you know this from my tweets, is no. And one of the reasons is what happens with the implied volatility values that affect the option pricing. You saw this in ROKU this week. We'll talk about ROKU in a bit. That there is just an IV dump that occurs. Premiums pump into the report and they dump afterwards. I would not be playing this, and I honestly wouldn't be adding any long stock positions if you're a long stock holder, because there is the possibility that we do have that primary ending count already in play if things are disappointing. Some names will top ahead of the general market. I'm not suggesting that it's HD. Just have to be aware of that possibility. So I think a better play for you is to wait to see what happens when trading responds to the ER, and you look for a move Wednesday. And if there's a pop and a chance to get in the back test, we could see HD by the end of what I'm projecting for the general market bull run into the 300s. Had a lot of questions recently about Netflix, and Netflix is one that has really just been burning option premium, as it pretty much just went in a choppy move up after its big earnings pop and drop. And so where is it now? Well, I still have a valid bull count on the table. Nothing has been violated from the bull count. It's a creative count that's kind of requiring me to dig in here to an expanded flat. So it's a leading diagonal up to its high. We're going to see that. Sorry, I didn't have this one preloaded. Sorry for the delay. So let me back this up here. We've got a leading diagonal from late January up to the high, a little bit less than 560, and then here we've got that expanded flat. And again, is this a viable, tradable bull flag? Well, that's what I've been saying. Is our anticipation is that these patterns have been playing out in your favor. So what's your move? Well, obvious. We need a breakout and we need a back test. I call that the B table, the breakout, test, and bounce long entry. So if we see it, that could be my trigger, maybe midday on Monday, to try to get Netflix back up to new all-time highs, which eventually I would have it topping along with the general market at someplace in the mid-600s. Okay, so now let's keep chugging through some individual names. Let's get back to some big tech. And I am going to show you some longer-term charts here. So we see the weekly. Okay, now Apple, very disappointing on this week, down more than 4%. And really raising a lot of red flags for the bullishness of the market going forward. I have this since its September low in a 1, 2, 3, 4. Lots of traders out there and waivers that I respect have it in a much more bullish 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, just because of the way that tech has lagged, I'm not yet willing to go there because the implications would be for an extremely bullish move for probably the majority of the year 2021. And that's not how I'm projecting things. So this fits my bigger term picture, and we're going to see what happens, because if Apple does trade into 125.39, unfortunately, this black bull count is busted, because you can't have a wave 4 into 1 violation within a wave 3. If that happens, I'm going to make a big move, and I'm going to call that we are looking for a super cycle top coming up in Apple. And that would be a lot like my Facebook projection from last week. This would be a big deal. Is it possible that we've seen an innovation cycle at the end of its life with Apple? I don't know, but the Elliott wave possibilities at least have to lead me to communicate that to you. Okay, what do I think will happen? I do think that support will hold. We have pivot, we have weekly EMA. I take you into the daily. Yeah, it's concerning because it's below its 50-day, but we've seen snapback, jump back rallies. Take a look at this too low. How many people here were pretty bearish that, oh no, this dead cat bounce, we're going lower, and look what it did. It snapped right back. I think that's going to happen. I do think that's going to happen here. And so the resolution that I would be giving Apple is maybe by its earnings in May, we see it in the upper 160s. I'm not yet willing to go crazy and target Apple up into the 200s. Let's look at Amazon. So Amazon, actually, let me make sure that I'm not forgetting about the short-term counts here. So Apple in the short term, we're going to see the possibility of a 1, 2, and then this is probably going to be a sub-degree level of resistance. That's right around 133. Now, if we do get the more bearish resolution, then here we actually had a bear flag, and it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 setup, and that could possibly result in that violation I indicated. Back to Amazon. Now, want to get you on the big picture here for Amazon, and would point out I would consider an EW friend that I follow. Not sure exactly how to pronounce her name. My French isn't good. Huguette has given you the picture of what I've shared as my all-time Amazon chart. And I would introduce a couple possibilities here. My primary is that we're actually still working strongly within a cycle 5. So I'm not projecting the end of the world here for Amazon. Although you can't help but say that Jeff Bezos's departure has obviously affected what's happened with the stock price. Is it going to get over it? I don't know. Now you can see even here on the zoomed out monthly, this is that bull pennant that we're looking for resolution. We haven't had it yet. So we thought we had a breakout 2 weeks ago, and then for these last 2 weeks, we've really had disappointment towards the end of the week. But here's something interesting. This looks quite a bit like an inverted bullish hammer right at the 8-week EMA. So this is giving a little bit of hope. Maybe Friday was just a big shakeout, and we've got bullish resolution to look forward to. I have to include, kind of like what I mentioned with Apple, the possibility that the top is in. And in this case, we would actually be setting up for a pretty devastating move to the downside. Considering Amazon's name and weighting, if that happens, then we're actually looking at a much more significant market top. I give it very low probability, very low. Single digits probability is what I would give it. I do think that the more likely count is we have a 1, 2, 1, 2, and we're in another nested 1, 2. It is possible that all of this move from 3086 is a 1, and this is either a 2. I'm going to leave this count as an alternate if this gap in this area needs to fill. So I don't think it's going to fill, but you know, you get a daily candle like this, and that certainly gives you some pause. On to the short-term looks here for Amazon. So I was really holding out hope for a nested 1, 2, 1, 2, sub-degree 1, 2. That obviously got busted. The clue, and I had tweeted this out pre-market Friday, was if this breakout could not hold, you needed to get out. And I actually did get out of some options that I was holding. I didn't play those well. I should have been selling into strength instead of trying to hold for the home run. It's another area of learning, and unfortunately, I caused a profitable trade to flat. That was my clue to exit, so at least further damage was avoided. That was the clue that this breakout wasn't going to hold. Now, this is the price that has to hold for my count. Otherwise, we're probably within that blue alt that could see the top of the gap at 3175 challenge. Otherwise, what needs to happen? Well, what needs to happen is we got to break out of this consolidation range. The last time it did try, it really didn't even hesitate at this 200 period MA, and it blew right through. So would the move be a move up to the channel by the end of the day Monday, and then it just blows right through? That's what happened when it tried to break out. Maybe that's going to repeat, but this would be the one that sticks. Okay, let's keep chugging through some of our names. We get to Tesla. So Tesla, I've got Tesla in a rising bearish wedge, and we're going to see what kind of resolution we get out of Tesla here. I don't think this more bearish top is in yet. We held the rail. We barely held right at the 8-week EMA. And my count suggests, again, is this a pattern that you want to buy? So is this bull flagging pattern that held here on Wednesday, the 50-day SMA, is that going to get you a break and a back test and a move up into my targets in the mid 900s, take you into the short term? And again, this is kind of what we're after is, are these pennant pattern setups going to resolve to the upside? Now, I mentioned there's only one name that I went long into the weekend, and that was actually Tesla. And my thought was that we held against Thursday's low. It looks to me like a possible 1-2-1-2. So this is the only one that I front run. And, then I'm following, some options flows, and I'm seeing, wow, it's like 70-80% bearish. And I'm thinking, that's probably not where most traders are aligned. In a contrarian way, might that work? Well, I don't know. You got to leave in the bearish possibility that we kind of had a dead cat bounce, and it's going to break down out of the pennant, a lot like some other charts that I've shown short term, and we're going to see bearish resolution early in the week. Got to leave that on the table. If you're not in and you think you want to be, I think your play is similar to what I've just described. Are we going to get a breakout and a bounce, a test that's going to hold for you to get in? So I think there was good reason to be cautious going into the weekend, to wait to see what we get. Will we get confirmation of entry? Okay, so the three that I just showed in that big tech realm, questionable with their health. Look at Microsoft, though. Microsoft well above its September high. And I think just a couple weeks of sideways consolidation here before we're going to get some resolution up. So if I take you into the daily, do we have here within this sideways consolidation above the previous all-time high in September, do we have a pennant and then a flag? So again, we're seeing this over and over. And what would be the move on Microsoft? So on Microsoft, I've actually got this sketched in here for you, exactly what I've explained. Are we going to get to the top of the rail? If that happens early in the day, would we break out, get your B table? And then there's your horizontal pivot at 246 that has to be broken. So interesting. Otherwise, again, we've got the possibility of the lower projections. Okay, another one, questionable, Facebook. So pretty ugly looking candle. I would point out that the last two times we approached the 200-day SMA, here and here, we saw some pretty big moves up. And that's what my primary bull count is suggesting, that we hit a deeper 2 fib, that we are actually going to see a move up. But you're going to notice, just like Amazon, we've got this consolidation range that has not broken. And if the big boys like this cannot get out of it, we're not going to see QQQ and the S&P get to those more bullish targets. I think these guys have to start participating. Let's take a look at Google. And I want to show you with Google, I've got that right next door on the daily. Here, look at this really interesting pattern. Kind of a pennant within a pennant, really holding well to this rail right above the 8-day EMA. It just pulled right back to it. That has been a reliable continuation pattern. I've got a target in the 2200s, and we're going to see, I think, compelling again. Google's one that doesn't get a lot of conversation out there. Are we going to get that pennant breakout? I would have my eye on Google because just of this long, drawn-out, maybe strength-gathering consolidation. Okay, got a lot more. I hope you're going to stick around for it. Let's look at Boeing. So Boeing moving nicely out of this bull flag. And where are we at with Boeing? So are we already seeing here a shallow 2 and we're ready to break out above the neckline? So that would be the suggestion on Boeing. And here's that neckline right at where it closed. If that happens, then that could just immediately trigger a move up into this channel into the mid 200s. So your play for Boeing might just be, if it breaks out, you might just get in, and we'll see that. Obviously, the back test of this 217, 218 area would be a place to buy as a good risk reward. Okay, one that is much more questionable. Look at an outside bearish engulfing on BYND. So I took a shot on BYND early in the week and got burned a bit. Outside weekly and daily, and candles like this I stay away. So it could resolve itself bullishly, but when it's looking that way, this was an interesting tweet thread that came out from a few people that I enjoy communicating with on Twitter. If there was a stock this week that might have been our clue that we weren't going to get bullish resolution, it was trying to force a bullish count onto this move. It just did not work. And maybe that would have been our clue to say, hey, you know, some setups maybe aren't working, and should we be a little more cautious? Certainly this ended up just being kind of a three-wave instead of a nested set of waves 1s and 2s, kind of forced that a little bit. And what's going to happen into its earnings this week, I just don't know. Not one judged on what I've shown you on the weekly and daily candles, and I'm going to try to front run. Okay, let's keep rolling here through Nvidia. What a wonderful sideways breakout over these last couple weeks, and I think some healthy consolidation above that area. I've got it targeted well into the 600s. You like that pullback, and then it got above. And if you want to play continued runs in Nvidia, it held that 200 period short-term average. And might this be 1, 2, 3, 4? Not sure. So the breakout area here could be a place to enter. If it certainly backtests again the 590 area, this would be a place I would say you'd want to buy to try to get those targets into the 600s. ROKU delivered surprise profits. As is sometimes not surprising, the earnings reaction wasn't all that great. Is this a name that topped on good news? I think it may be silly to doubt ROKU, but I would point out it does have a potentially completed Elliott wave progression that could sell off. I think much more likely in ROKU, bouncing right off a really nice channel that I've got going into the low 500s. Did see a recovery on Friday and another classic TA setup. So would your entry again? Look for the B table, breakout, test, and bounce long term or long entry. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, we'll do the Z before we actually end it, but I will just take it when we're here. So Zoom with a disappointing week, but still above all of its MAs that are in a bull-aligned position. And into the daily, we've got potentially a double bottom right at a typical degree 4 fib. And looking again into the short term, here's another classic pattern. So will it hold this part of its volume shelving profile? Can we get that play again? So I'm giving you multiple names that I think you can look for patterns to play out if you kept some powder dry and got cash ready for early in the week. Okay, last set of tabs to run through. So let's get into AMD. And I circled what could be a repeating pattern of sideways consolidation above this pivot area. And just like we saw in July, are we going to get a big run out? And that's what my primary count is suggesting. Now, the way you count this internally is a little bit tricky because of the overlapping waves that we see. And I'm going with an ending diagonal. So I'm going with 1, 2, 3 that traded into 1, which suggests that this final move needs to be a wave 3. I think we got the first and the second, the A and the B. And so we're looking here, again, we're looking for that confirming breakout. So one to watch closely, I think, early this week is AMD. Here's one that's also pretty compelling. This reminds me a lot of HD, reminds me a lot of what already happened with NVDA. Do we have Salesforce ready for a 6-month flagging breakout with targets potentially around 300? Right here, some consolidation right at it. It's possible that this 4 is in. It's also possible that we pull back a little deeper if that's what the market wants. Salesforce is a pretty important component of the S&P. So do we get that 4 in place? And are we ready for a B table? Are we going to break and test? And this is one I have never owned Salesforce before. Make your own judgment about that as you will. I would definitely consider an entry, but would I do it before earnings? I would try to get out before earnings. If I see that move early in the week, those earnings aren't till Thursday. So again, my preference is not to try to play the earnings move. Okay, Disney. One here on the longer term, I've got, like Tesla, in a rising bearish wedge. And eventually, you're going to have to start thinking about names that could reach significant tops. So Disney, I think, is not yet done. I've got it having put in a minor 4 of this last intermediate wave up to a primary 3. Some more flagging action like this big one. This is just a smaller fractal of it. And I would point out the last time that Disney broke out of its flag, it didn't even backtest. So keep that in mind. I'm a believer in really getting to know these names. I'm not a flavor of the day kind of waiver. So I don't move from name to name to name to name trying to hit setups. I want to get to learn the character of these. And I'm thinking for Disney, if we get the move out, we might not even get a backtest. And that could be the way that you want to get in. And you know, the projections here that these moves would move strongly into March, maybe top out in April, May. So you don't need to play short-term options. You can buy the stock long, planning to hold for a few months, or get the expiration dates out there and make it a little more safe in your favor. Okay, 2 more here. So Draftkings. This is a very bullish count. Consolidation again above previous pivot. I missed this one. We had the drop early this week, the bounce off the pivot, and the moving average. This should have been such an obvious one. 34 EMA, horizontal pivot at a potential bullish 1-2, and I just missed it. So if you missed it like me, what are you looking for? Well, here we probably have a sub-degree 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm probably not going to buy the breakout, anticipating that we're going to see some resistance at the all-time high, looking to get in on a pullback. But again, what about earnings? So earnings Friday before, this is a tricky one for me. It would be nice to try to get in if the market resolves upward, but I'm going to hesitate. This may be one that I have to wait, not until this coming week, but until the week after. But I have very, very bullish upside targets I can take you back to the weekly, all the way potentially above $100. Okay, last one, we have Tdoc, and I have Tdoc just exploding out of this consolidation area that ran from July all the way into mid-January. 2 potential topping targets in the 300s. And we had some rail bouncing. We had a nice move up against general market weakness on Friday. In the short term, you know, there isn't really an obvious pattern here. It's already above that trend following MA that I like. Maybe a little bit of a pennant-like pattern. Tdoc's probably one with its earnings coming up again on Wednesday. You could play a run up into them, and if your philosophy is like mine, you would hold your stock, maybe not add, wait to see what the reaction is Thursday, Friday. Okay, so I think I've shown you a lot of compelling setups. I do really think the market is set up well. As I already told you, I'm sitting just on a lot of dry powder, and I'm going to be looking for opportunities, keeping in mind the ones that have earnings reports. I'm going to be looking for confirming breakouts and moves. Let me just get your eyes back on a few of those. I can take you back onto here. What would it look like in IWM, for instance? There's an example of the pennant. A breakout, a back test, and a move up is what I would be recommending that you have some of your eyes on this week. So as always, thanks for tuning in. There will not be a metals and miners video this week. Doesn't mean I'm bearish on metals and miners, although they're making us a little nervous if you're in the trades. Just means there's nothing extremely significant to report. Also save me a little bit of work, give me a little more family time. Thank you for the likes and follows. Certainly subscribe to YouTube, retweet if that's your thing, and we're going to see what happens in what I think is a pretty fun week for some bullish setups.